Be modest. Okay? Jonathan broke one of the most basic commands. Respect your father and your mother. He went against his father. But not only going against his father, he went against his own entrance. Because if Saul die, I'm going to be the king like Jonathan and not David. So why do I want to help David when I can help my dad and be the next king of Israel? But he was a man of God, you know. God wanted David to be the king, and Jonathan accepted it. He was such a modest person, you guys, it's unreal. And David knew to appreciate it. Not for nothing, David mourned over his brother Jonathan. Actually, when I went to school, our teacher, because it's an Israeli school, okay, told us that David and Jonathan, and I'm like 12 or 13 years old, Jonathan and David were lovers. And David loved Jonathan, and it's okay to have homosexual relationship and everything. Typical Israeli school, okay? Because people don't know the Bible and they don't know the word. But back then in the time, I'm not sure if we understood exactly what our teacher told us, but later on in time, it's really bothered me and so on. And I joined the Israeli military, and I served in a nice unit and so on. And only once in my life I was in a real battle. Bullets flying over, and friends of mine were injured and some killed next to me. People that trained with you, shoulder to shoulder, you shared a tent with them, you know, best friends. Like the army produces best friends. And only then I understood the pain that David had. Because Jonathan gave his own life, spiritually speaking, because he didn't respect his father, and went against his father for his friend David. Remember, that's one of the only commands in the Bible: respect your mother and your father for you to have long life. Remember that? And Jonathan didn't do that because he wanted to do the right thing in the eyes of God. The love that people have into their comrades, anyone of you that served in the military knows exactly what I'm talking about, is the love that you guys don't have to your spouse, but have to your kids. The love to the kids, it's kind of different to the love that you have to your spouse, because you're going to put your life in front of your kids, okay? So David was really, I don't want to say devastated, but he was kind of broken when his friend Jonathan died. And not for nothing, he cursed those mountains, not so far away from here, Mount Gilboa. There is something quite amazing about that, because there is another David that came later on, only 3,000 years after, and said, okay, God brought us back to the land. This is the time to change some orders. And he ordered to plant like 50 million trees over Mount Gilboa. And the climate changed over here. Now there is rain in this area. Look how green it is. Okay? We're back. God restored the blessed to this country. So although there is desert animals living on the mountains, there is dew and there is rain. Okay? And that's the blessing of God to this region. After David, okay, there is the kingdom, destruction of the kingdom, other people coming in, then the Greeks coming in, and then they're building their cities. But what you see down here, it's mainly the Roman time. Because this architect, remember from before, Vitruvius, he was the one that dictated how every Roman city is supposed to look like in the world. So no matter where you go in the world, if it's a Roman city, it's always look the same. That's the corridor, the main street of the city, okay? And there is an area with temples, and you know exactly where is the amphitheaters and where is the theaters. So if you're a Roman citizen, every city in the world looking the same. There is no much to look. You know where to go to. Actually, do you think that Jesus came to the Decapolis, to the city? I think that he did. The Bible doesn't say what he did, but he says that he went to all of the cities of the Decapolis. And this is one of them. So probably he did come to the city. And actually, where did we found it? In
Colossians
chapter 3, verse 11.
Let me just, real quickly.
Thank you, Pastor. But in the meantime, I'll tell you that the Roman name of the city is Scythopolis.
Yeah.
Who are the Scythians? You guys know who are the Scythians? But
The Colossians 3, verse 11. Here there is not Greek and Jew, circumcised and uncircumcised, barbarian, Scythian, slave, free, but Christ is all and in all.
thank you, Pastor. So the Scythians are the inhabitants of Scythopolis, the city. דיברת זה, על המיתולוגיה טיפה? שאני אדבר?
לא עכשיו.
לדבר או אתה רוצה לדבר?
סבבה. תזכיר יוניס.
Okay. Okay. So you guys, like you know, the Greek world and the Roman world using the same gods with different names. Okay. And you guys know what's the name of this false god of American universities and colleges?
Gaia.
No, Dionysus. Dionysus, it's a god of parties and wine. Okay, mainly wine. Okay.
Oh, parties and wine. Gotcha.
Exactly.
Gaia,
Gaia, it's the goddess of earth. But anyhow, according to the Greek mythology, without touching it too much, he grew up over here somehow. But the wife of Jupiter, Zeus, wanted to kill him, so the guy needed to have some bodyguards. And the Scythians are his bodyguards. So they're all around. Actually, his nanny also named the city named partly after his nanny. So there is a lot of kind of historical, religious background when it comes to the Greek world. And that's why Scythopolis, the city of the Scythians. Now, Ron touched almost everything, so there is nothing to say, but here's something crazy. Okay? It's really, really crazy. The city destroyed a few times, okay, in earthquakes, because we're really in a Rift Valley. So it happens in the 4th century, but back then, the inhabitants of the city had the motivation, the finance, and the will to restore the city. So they rebuilt the city. But the earthquake from the 8th century, there is already different people over here. Those are the Muslims. And the Muslims don't need all of these fancy buildings or to rebuild the buildings. Now it's a small town. It's the country going down and down and down under the Muslims. So what the Muslims are doing is they try to save whatever they could for new buildings. And primarily, they cover the entire city. It's kind of a time capsule that they kind of created. And that's why us coming later on to dig, it all came out of the ground pretty much complete. But look how crazy it is. In the past 110 years, people digging over here over and over again, okay? But the big push to Beit She'an took place in 1991, okay? What happens in 1991? Actually, this event changed the relationship between Jews and Christians, evangelical Christians. Because until then, you guys suspecting kind of that God likes us, okay? But suddenly there is an event that once and for all approves and fulfills the prophecy. And that's the fall of the Iron Curtain in Russia. Let my people go, like the movements. Overnight, 1.5 million Jews came over back home to Israel, okay? Didn't happen overnight, but it happened in a very short time. And those people are very intelligent, educated people, but they couldn't speak the language because it wasn't allowed in Russia to speak Hebrew or to be a Jew, okay? So although those people knew a lot, they couldn't communicate. You guys, until 1991, Israel, it's a third world country. Those people came and pushed this country to the future. It's unreal. Back then, there is only 4 million people in the country. Can America absorb today 80 million people? No way. We're taking 1.5 million in. It's a proportion, okay? Just imagine this country overnight growing in 25%. It's unreal. You need to build roads, buildings, jobs. It's the biggest blessed of this country.
It's the legacy of Ronald Reagan that I never thought about. You see?
Let my people
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
You're right.
Everything is
Yeah, he was part of this
pivotal.
movement. Very active. Like,
Margaret Thatcher and Ronald Reagan.
mainly Roland Reagan. You're right. But they knew a lot of Russian Jews. They formed before an industry in America that he was part of. It's called Hollywood. That's the truth. Anyhow, you guys, those people arriving over, And during the day when it's really, really hot, they study in Ulpan Hebrew. And at night time, for them to make a living, professors that doing heart surgeries found themselves over here digging out antiquities because they couldn't speak the language, okay? And that's what happened at the beginning, and that's when the big push came. And it fulfills the prophecy from the book of Jeremiah 31 and 32 about the Iron Curtain falling and the northern captivity came back. Actually, I'll tell you a quick story and then we'll go. There is a Russian Jew that really wanted to fulfill his Judaism. He really wanted to come back to the land, but he couldn't because of the Iron Curtain. So he said to himself something very simple. If I cannot be a Jew, I better die. And if I'll die, I'll go to heaven because I'm a Jew. We have apparently like a ticket to heaven, okay? We can argue about that later on. But this guy took a Hebrew study book and went and sat in the middle of the Red Square in Moscow. So his mother came to him and said to him, "Are you crazy? If anyone see you, you die." So he says to his mother, "Mother, precisely, I want to die, and if I'll die, I'll go to heaven. If I'll go to heaven, I'll need to speak Hebrew. So I'm studying offense." So his mother is saying to him, "You're so smart. What's going to happen to you if you're going to go to hell?" So the guy says to his mother, "Mom, I can already speak Russian." Hey guys, we're going to speak to the two groups, but first of all, I need to ask you a question. Not so far away from here, there is a kiosk. They're doing amazing homemade schnitzel.